Welcome to the Daughter Arise channel. My name is Yvonne and this channel is all about bringing you content about childhood sexual abuse. On this channel I share things to do with going through childhood sexual abuse, my experiences. I also share things to encourage other survivors on their journey to healing. And also I share news stories and content about childhood sexual abuse, and from time to time interview other survivors and their supporters in hopes of raising awareness about this childhood trauma. So if this is the type of content you're looking for, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so that you can be notified of any new uploads. And if you like the content, please hit the thumbs up button. So in today's video, I want to talk to you about boundaries. Now, the reason I wanted to talk to you about this is because recently I did a support group where I talked about the issues of boundaries, because what I've realised is for a lot of survivors who have gone through childhood sexual abuse, one of the very first things that has happened to them is that their boundaries have been violated by the abuser. And how that then goes forward and affects the survivor later on in life is that they have problems with boundaries with themselves, boundaries with other people, allowing other people to take advantage of them, allowing other people to use them, not feeling like, you know, they can say no. And I did a video way back, probably about 2-3 years ago, called Just Say No, because I feel that saying no for survivors is a really difficult thing. For a lot of survivors it is. I found it difficult to say no, and I had to learn how to do that in stages. And in that video I discussed about how I started to say no to the small things and then built up to, you know, use that as confidence to say no in the bigger things. So if I find a link for that video, I will leave it at the top of this one here. So the main reason why I struggled with setting boundaries was because of my childhood sexual abuse. When you have somebody who is supposed to be somebody who protects you, like my father, but instead turns around and violates you whatever way they can, at whatever time they can, just because they can do it, it really does leave you feeling helpless. And I felt helpless for a very long time. Even after I came out of the initial danger and the situation of going through childhood sexual abuse, I struggled with boundaries in other areas of my life as well. So I struggled with boundaries in relationships. Some relationships I would say, you know, I didn't want to get myself into situations where it would lead to a sexual situation, but I already felt once it had gone too far that, you know, I didn't have the power to say no, because all I wanted sometimes was a hug, you know, and not for it to lead into anything sexual. But then it would go too far, and then once it went too far, I would struggle to establish that boundary. I had some situations where people would take advantage of the fact that, you know, I struggled, you know, to establish my authority in some situations. And that stemmed from, you know, low self-esteem and low confidence as well. But it really did affect how I set healthy boundaries with people in general. And also, in another sense, I struggled with setting boundaries with myself, saying, okay, I'm not going to do this certain thing today. I'm not going to drink today. I'm not going to smoke weed today, whatever it was. You know, this is going back many years. But I used to struggle to, you know, say, okay, this is what I'm not going to do today, and stick to it. I would always push over that boundary. And it's kind of crazy because it almost felt like I was proving to myself that I have control over myself by pushing past my own boundary. I don't know if that makes sense, but in establishing the boundary, I would then push past the boundary to prove that actually I am in control of that boundary. And in always doing that, you know, it always used to set me up for failure. And then I always used to have this thing where I would just beat myself up about the fact that I didn't stick to what I said I was going to do. So boundaries for me was a really tough area of my life. As a matter of fact, I would say it was one of the most toughest areas of my life post-abuse to try and make sense of. And I think in order to build healthy boundaries, first of all, I had to get to know myself. Obviously, I've talked about on other videos going to psychotherapy after I had my first breakdown at 22 years old, and the work beginning really from there. For the first time in my life, understanding who I was, what I wanted, all that type of stuff. And I think in that process, it helped me to start to think about what boundaries I wanted to set for myself, what I was going to allow, what I was not going to allow. A lot of people I had in my life at the time didn't care about my boundaries. They just wanted to do what they wanted to do. And because they probably knew my weak points, they knew my weak spots, they would take advantage of that. And I can't completely put the blame on those people, because obviously it was up to me to actually, you know, be at a point to say, you know, no, you can't do that, or not allow certain things to happen. So, you know, I take responsibility for that as well. But going through the whole therapy process, understanding who I was, understanding what I would allow and what I wouldn't allow, allowed me to set healthy boundaries with other people. In the beginning, I think it was harder for me to set boundaries with other people. But then later on, I found it hard to set boundaries with myself. And if I'm being honest, I think that is an area that I still struggle with at times, being self-disciplined with certain things. It's only by the grace of God that I've been able to get this far and to be able to make the changes that I have made. And it's taken a lot of hard work, it's taken a lot of reflection, it's taken a lot of having self-awareness about things that, you know, I'm doing, and being aware of the things that are going on in my life. I think it is healthy and good to set boundaries in both ways, with other people and with yourself. It's not easy to set boundaries with yourself, and you have to do it step by step. It is a new learning process, especially if you've gone through sexual abuse as a child. I think one of the major issues I think that is not going to help in setting boundaries with yourself, which I found through my own experience, is worrying about how others will respond to your boundaries. As I've mentioned, when people were taking advantage of my boundaries, knowing full well what they were doing, you know, they weren't worried about the effects of the things that they were doing to me. They were more concerned about what they wanted to do. It's very easy as a survivor to worry about how other people will interpret your boundaries. But the main thing I would say to that is it's all about self-preservation. You are doing it to preserve yourself. And in doing so, you know, you can't worry about other people. It's easier said than done. I found when I was setting boundaries, I would have those worries as well. At the same time, I'd be setting those boundaries. And you might find when you do that, you know, you'll be feeling that, but still trying to establish a boundary. And that's totally fine. That's normal. You know, it's normal to do that. But you can't worry about how other people will perceive your boundaries. Some people may have been used to being able to doing what they've been doing with you for a long time, and they're not used to, you know, you saying actually enough is enough. But it's really up to them what they're going to do from when you establish that boundary. They're either going to respect it, or they're going to have to, you know, say goodbye. And that's another thing that you can't allow to make you feel like you've done something wrong in setting a boundary, is if you have to say goodbye to the person. Because if they respect you, if they like you or they love you or they respect you, they will respect that boundary. And you've done nothing to feel guilty about. It's totally normal, you know, to set boundaries with people. That's how it's supposed to go. So I just want to share with you 3 things to help you to start to establish boundaries in your life. These are things that have helped me in my own journey, you know, and as I've mentioned in other videos, it's been a 25-year plus journey for me to get to where I am today. So I've tried lots of different things, and these are some things that have helped me. So the first step is to look at boundaries that stem from why you cannot build boundaries. As I mentioned at the beginning of the video, my issue stemmed from being overpowered as a child by my father. That was one of the main things that really did pose a problem for me establishing boundaries later on in life. I don't know how you would go about doing that for yourself. Maybe it would be through therapy with a counsellor who knows about childhood sexual abuse issues. Maybe it's something that you've realised from therapy already, or from just things already, where this issue of, you know, lack of boundaries comes from. That is the very first thing that I would suggest. The second thing I want to share with you is to build self-esteem and confidence. So it's about developing your self-esteem, getting to know who you are as a person, understanding who you are as a person, the things you like, the things you don't like. All these different things will help you to start to understand who you are, what you will and will not allow as a person as well. So having to think about those things that are going to help you to build self-esteem and confidence. The next thing is to stand firm in your boundary, starting to say no to little things, and then in doing that and seeing the results of that, it will help to build your confidence to say no to bigger things. And also, you know, helping you to develop your voice as well. But it's practice and establish. That's basically what it is. Practicing, you know, setting boundaries, and then you are able to establish them. And it doesn't happen overnight. You may have one time where you are really successful at setting boundaries with people, and then another time, you know, you may fall off a bit, but don't beat yourself up about it. You just have to go forward and keep practicing setting boundaries where you can. Some days you'll be successful, other days you might not be so successful, but it's really about practice and establish. One thing you've got to remember about establishing boundaries is that at the centre of it, it's about your self-preservation. It's not about other people. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of survivors struggle with, is because of being violated and stuff, and not having their voice heard and not being believed and stuff. It almost feels selfish to say, actually, you know, I'm going to think about totally me for once. I'm not thinking about anything else. But this is really essential to establishing boundaries. You have to make it all about you. You can't let people tell you you're selfish. You can't let people make you feel bad for doing it. Yes, you may initially feel it, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong. Actually, it's totally right, because it's about establishing who you are, you know, your self-preservation, you know, setting boundaries to protect you, and that can never be wrong. If you're a survivor, you know, coming from a place where you have had your boundaries just overrode by adults, you know, being violated and stuff, it can make you feel powerless. But what we want to do as survivors going forward in life is not to take that powerlessness with us as adults. We need to completely remove ourselves from how lack of boundaries made us feel. Obviously, at first, it won't feel good to establish the boundaries. It will feel horrible. I can tell you that from experience. Establishing boundaries with people feels absolutely horrible. It feels like you've done something wrong. And that's just the warped way it is. You know, I found this from going through this experience. But it is good in the long run. So you just need to continue to practice and establish boundaries. I have a fantastic workbook called Choose Life, which is available on the Daughter Arise store and Yumi Empowerment store, and also on Amazon and Waterstones. And this is a practical empowerment workbook for survivors. Some of the things that I've talked about in this video in terms of boundaries, if you want help to be able to do that, in this book I have lots of different things to help you to establish boundaries and look at other areas to help you to find your voice as well. So that is it for this video. Don't forget to hit the thumbs up if you have found it helpful, and I will see you on the next video. Take care.